Hello, welcome to the Intro to Timeline tutorial. Here you're going to learn the basics of the timeline, one of the most useful tools in iClone. You can open up the timeline easily by clicking the button at the bottom of your work window, or simply by pressing F3. If I double click my timeline, it will merge into the area below your work window and become stationary. Just double click it again to return to the floating timeline. An easy way to scroll through your frames is by clicking in the frame track at the top of your timeline. The little black box and red line will indicate your current frame. Let's start off with the basics first. I'm importing in a sphere prop here, which I'm going to show you on the timeline. The fastest and easiest way to open up the timeline is just to press the F3 key. Once you do that, you'll see the timeline pop up. You can see that the track for my sphere is already there. As you can see, when I click and drag in the frame indicator track, my timeline at the bottom will also move. I can zoom out quickly to get a better view of my timeline by simply clicking and dragging the white time scrub. Alternately, you can use the zoom in and zoom out keys as well. So let's make a simple animation. I'll scrub up to about frame 70 and then open the transform track for my sphere. This track will indicate a change in position for any on-screen object. Once I move my sphere over, you'll see a keyframe appear in the transform track. And now, when I scrub back and forth, you'll see the sphere's movement. Let's add in another cone prop here, and I'll show you the basic way to select props or character tracks. Once my cone is in, I'll go to the same frame 70 and animate that as well. To open the track, I simply need to go to the track menu, and I'll find my cone under the props section. Take a look at the playback when I scrub through the timeline now. Remember that you can change the position of the keyframes to make your animation faster or slower. I'm making an animation here with 4 quick points. I'll just go ahead 20 frames each time and put my mannequin here in a different position. You can see that each time I do, a keyframe will appear. If I want, I can use the Shift-Tab hotkey to go to the next keyframe automatically on the track, a useful little trick. If I want to make the action faster, I can simply click and drag my keyframes to closer proximity. Alternately, I can copy and paste keyframes to any position I want on the timeline by using Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V once the keyframes are selected. I can also select multiple keyframes at a single time by clicking and dragging in the transform track, then clicking and dragging any one of the selected keyframes. You can see the results here. So now let's take a look at the character tracks. I'll drag in Chuck here, and once I open the timeline, I'll set about opening up all his various tracks. The most important tracks for characters are the transform and motion tracks. You saw the transform track shows change in position, but as you can see, the motion track also contains a bunch of subtracks for individual body parts, as does the face for facial features. When you create an animation with motion puppet or mixed moves, a clip will appear in the motion track. Any individual movement you do using the motion key editor will add keyframes to the individual body part subtracks below. There are also other tracks like reach, constraint, visible, material, and sound. These are used for more advanced features that you can learn about in other tutorials. So let's apply some animations. What I'm going to do first is bring in another character here and show you a quick way to open object tracks in the timeline for props or characters you've selected on the screen. You can see that the character track in the timeline is currently only for Chuck. However, I have Gwen selected, and if I toggle on Object Related Track, then the Open Character track will switch to Gwen. If I hold down the Control key and select both, then both of their tracks will appear in the timeline. Okay, so let's apply a motion to Gwen from the right-click menu. As you can see, right after I click the motion, Gwen will begin to do her little cross arms idle motion, which goes on for quite a few frames. You can see the frame progress in the timeline. Most animations you apply to your character will appear in the motion track, so I'll open that one up by clicking it. You'll see that my motion appears in the motion subtrack. If I want to zoom out to view more, I can just click and drag the edge of the white time scrub at the top. So I'll scrub back to the beginning here briefly and play. If I want to make this animation progress faster, I can just click and drag the edge of the motion clip and shorten it. You can see from the playback that the character movement is much quicker. I can also duplicate clips one after the other by toggling the loop speed switch mode. When I do that, you can see that when I click and drag the edge of my clip, it will simply create clone clips one after the other. I can simply press Ctrl Z to undo any clip modifications that I don't like. I'll just undo that and restore the clip to something closer to its original speed. So now I'll select Chuck, and I'm going to apply an animation to him as well. I'm going to go into one of the actions from the Mixed Moves Communication 200 pack and simply double click to apply it. You'll see that Chuck will begin his ecstatic happy movements, and you can see the clip in the motion track as I open it up. I can scrub through my animation really quickly by clicking and dragging in the frame indicator track. Okay, I'm going to delete Gwyn now and remove all the animation from Chuck. To do that, I simply need to right-click on my character and select Remove All Animation. Now Chuck will remain in the same pose, however when I scrub through the timeline there is no longer animation. I'll show another quick example here of how to break and reverse clips. I'm going to rotate Chuck sideways, and again use the right-click menu and choose the Walk Forward command. I then need to select a spot on the ground I want him to walk to, and click it. You'll see Chuck will walk forward to end up at the point that I selected. Now if my character is moving, I'll have a problem with repeating the motion, as the position information is also stored in the clip. So if I toggle loop mode and drag to create another clip, you'll notice a quick jump back and forth in my character's animation. Just for fun, I'm going to create a back and forth walk to demonstrate how you can break and reverse clips. What I'm going to do here is go to the approximate area where the clip repeats, and simply break the two clips in half by using the break command. Now you can see that there are two separate selectable clips, and an automatic transition is added in between. What I'll do now is simply right-click the second clip and select Reverse, which will reverse the animation clip. Now you'll see that my character will take some steps forward, pause for a bit, and then take some steps backwards. However, on closer inspection, you can see a little bit of unnatural jerk movement during the transition. I can fix this by moving my second clip back a bit, as well as increasing the transition area by clicking and dragging. The transition area is the transparent section of each clip at the very beginning. Dragging it will often make an action transition look more natural. So now, take a look at the full animation. You'll notice slight foot sliding, which you can resolve by taking a look at this special foot sliding tutorial. Now if I want, I can save that entire motion as my own custom clip as well. To do this, I need to open up the Collect Clip track, select and highlight the entire duration of the animation, and then right-click and select Add to Motion Library. I'll just give my animation a name there and save it. The clip will then appear in the Custom tab of the Animation section. I can now apply it to any character. I'll bring in Gwyn here to demonstrate. I'm going to place her right in front of Chuck, rotate her, and then find my animation and double-click it to apply it to her. But you'll see that Gwyn will be facing the wrong way when she walks now. So what I need to do is rotate her body once again to make her face the right way. Now she'll walk back and forth in the same direction as Chuck. Next up is a little bit of info about keyframes and transition curves. Keyframes are created whenever an object is moved around the screen at a different frame. First, what I'm going to do here is go to about frame 100 and then select my mannequin torso here and press the W key to toggle the movement gizmo. I'll then move it to the left. You can see when I play back that there is a straight and uniform movement, and a keyframe appears around frame 100 in the timeline. Now about transitions. Transitions will affect the rate of movement between keyframes. If I right-click on the second keyframe, I can go to the transition curve and select the Ease In transition. You can see from the repeat animation now that the torso will have a slower acceleration at the beginning of the motion. Ease Out will cause the opposite effect, having the torso slow down near the end of the animation. So let's put in a third keyframe position here to demonstrate the dual transition types. For the third position, I'll bring the torso up for a freaky dark close-up. If I apply the Ease Out and In transition curve to the second keyframe, you'll see a little pause in the middle, as the torso is both easing out from the first keyframe and into the second. If I reverse this though, and select Ease In and Out, you'll see then that the torso will slow down as it approaches the second point, and ease out slightly when it begins its approach to the third point. If I then select the third keyframe and use the Ease Out transition curve, you'll see the torso slow down as it approaches the final destination. The last thing I'll demonstrate is the Zero Transform key. If I go to the exact position of my second keyframe and press this button on the timeline, it will completely cancel out the position of that keyframe and reset it to the scene root. If I pan down a bit, you can see the scene root here, indicated by the multicolored axis. You can see that the transition data has also changed a bit, so what I'll do here is just reapply that. Notice the difference when I apply the Ease In and Out to the center keyframe. Pretty creepy, right? For more detailed info on the timeline and how you can use it, stay tuned for our more advanced timeline tutorial.